The Velthary Confederation had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. Their ships were made of living crystal that could heal itself. Their soldiers had never known defeat. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems, and every species in the galaxy knew better than to challenge them. High Arbiter Zolveth stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eternal Mandate. He was tall and thin, with skin like blue glass that glowed softly in the dim light. His 4 eyes sat on stalks that moved independently, letting him watch everything around him at once. He had served the Confederation for 200 years, and in all that time, he had never once questioned the superiority of his people. Today was a good day. His patrol fleet had caught a human ship crossing into restricted space. The humans were a young species, barely 500 years into space travel. They were curious and persistent, always pushing into new territories. Zolveth found them annoying, like insects that refused to stay in their proper place. The human ship was called the Wanderer's Hope. It was a colony transport, slow and poorly armed. Zolveth's fleet had surrounded it easily. The humans had tried to run it first, but their engines were no match for Velthary technology. Within an hour, the ship was disabled and boarded. Commander Richel entered the bridge and bowed low. He was younger than Zolveth, his skin a lighter shade of blue. He served as second in command, handling the details that Zolveth found beneath his attention. "Report," Zolveth said, without turning. "The humans have been secured, High Arbiter. We count 66 of them in total. We have separated them into 2 groups as per standard protocol." "2 groups?" "Yes, High Arbiter. 47 adults have been placed in holding block 7. The remaining 19 appear to be juveniles, smaller, less developed. We place them in Containment Unit 12. Zolveth's eye stalks tilted with mild curiosity. "Juveniles? You mean they're young?" "Yes, High Arbiter. Some are very small indeed. We thought it best to separate them. The adults were becoming difficult to manage, and we assumed the young would be easier to control on their own." "A reasonable decision," Zolveth said. He turned back to the main view screen, which showed the captured human ship floating dead in space. "Process them for the labor camps. The adults can work in the mining colonies. The young ones—" He paused, considering. "They can be trained for domestic service, I suppose. Humans are said to be adaptable." "Yes, High Arbiter. I will make the arrangements." Richel hesitated. "There is one other matter. Before we disabled their communications, the humans sent out a distress signal. They were calling for someone named Admiral Katie Brooks." Zolveth made a dismissive gesture with one long-fingered hand. "Let them call. What is one human admiral against the Velthary Confederation? She probably commands a handful of patrol ships at most. By the time she arrives, if she even bothers to come, the prisoners will be processed and distributed across our territory. Of course, High Arbiter. I will inform the detention staff." Resho bowed again and left the bridge. Zolveth watched the stars for a moment longer, then returned to his reports. The capture of a human ship was barely worth mentioning in his daily summary. The Confederation processed thousands of trespassers every year. These 66 would be no different. He was wrong. In Containment Unit 12, 19 human children sat huddled together on the cold metal floor. The room was bare and harsh, lit by white lights that never dimmed. There were no beds, no blankets, no water. Just empty walls and a sealed door that had not opened since the guards pushed them inside. Emma was the oldest at 15. She had pulled all the younger children close to her, forming a tight circle in the center of the room. Her heart was racing, but she kept her voice calm. The little ones needed her to be brave. "I want my mommy," whispered Lily. She was only 5, the youngest of the group. Her small hands clutched Emma's shirt, and her eyes were red from crying. "I know, sweetheart," Emma said softly. I know, but we have to be brave right now, okay? Our parents are going to come get us. They always do. 7-year-old Danny sat pressed against his older sister Grace, who was 12. Danny had not spoken since the aliens took them from the ship. He just stared at the floor, his small body trembling. "Where did they take our parents?" asked Noah. He was 8, with curly brown hair and glasses that sat crooked on his face. "Why did they separate us?" Emma did not have an answer. She had heard the guards talking in their strange clicking language, and even though she could not understand the words, she had seen the way they looked at the children. Like they were cargo. Like they were nothing. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we have to stay together. We have to take care of each other until help comes." "What if help doesn't come?" whispered Grace. Emma looked at her, then at all the scared faces surrounding her. These were her neighbors, her friends, children she had known her whole life on the colony ship. Their parents had trusted her to help watch over them during the long journey to their new home. She was not going to let them down. "Help will come," she said firmly. "Our parents will never stop looking for us. Never. That's what parents do. They protect their children, no matter what." In holding Block 7, the adult prisoners were learning the same lesson. Henry Porter had been the captain of the Wanderer's Hope. He was 54 years old, a quiet man who had spent his life among the stars. He had seen many things in his travels, faced many dangers, but nothing had prepared him for this. His daughter Lily was 5 years old. She liked butterflies and strawberry ice cream. She was afraid of the dark, and she was somewhere on this alien ship, alone and scared, and he could not reach her. The aliens had used some kind of energy field to keep the adults contained. Henry had thrown himself against it until his hands were burned and bleeding. It had not mattered. He had kept trying. Around him, the other parents were doing the same. Mothers screamed for their children. Fathers beat against the walls until their fists broke. The aliens had tried to sedate them, pumping gas into the room, but even that barely slowed them down. Margaret, Lily's mother, had collapsed against Henry's shoulder. She was not crying anymore. She had moved past tears into something colder and harder. "We're going to get her back," she said. Her voice was flat, like a blade being sharpened. "I don't care what we have to do. I don't care who we have to go through. We are getting our daughter back." Henry nodded. He looked around at the other parents, saw the same cold fire burning in their eyes. The aliens had made a mistake. They had separated human children from their parents. They had no idea what that meant. 3 light years away, a distress signal reached a small communications relay. It was automatically forwarded to the nearest military outpost. From there, it traveled up the chain of command with increasing urgency. Within an hour, it reached the desk of Admiral Katie Brooks. She read it once. Then she read it again. Then she picked up her communicator and began making calls. The galaxy was about to learn, a lesson it would never forget. Admiral Katie Brooks had served in the United Earth Navy for 31 years. She had fought in 3 wars, negotiated a dozen treaties, and commanded fleets that stretched across entire star systems. She had seen things that would break most people. She had done things that still kept her awake at night. But when she read the distress signal from the Wanderer's Hope, her hands began to shake. She was in her quarters on Station Artemis when the message arrived. It was late, and she had been trying to sleep. That changed the moment she saw the words on her screen. Colony ship captured. 66 civilians detained. 19 children separated from parents. Location unknown. She was in the command center within 5 minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. Her senior staff assembled around her, their faces grim. "Tell me everything," she said. Commander Lucas Gray handled intelligence. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes who had spent his career gathering information that others overlooked. He pulled up a holographic display showing the sector where the Wanderer's hope had vanished. The ship was making a routine navigation stop when it drifted into Valkyrie-claimed territory. A Confederation patrol fleet intercepted them. We have confirmed they are being held aboard the flagship, a vessel called the Eternal Mandate. The Valkyrie, Brooks said. The name tasted bitter in her mouth. She had dealt with them before. They were arrogant and cruel, but they were also careful. They avoided conflict with species that could fight back. Yes, ma'am. High Arbiter Zolveth commands the patrol fleet. 18 ships in total, including 4 heavy cruisers. And the children? Gray's jaw tightened. According to the last transmission from Captain Henry Porter, the Valkyrie separated the children from the adults immediately after boarding. 19 children, ages 5 to 15, are being held in a separate containment area. The adults are in a different section of the ship. Captain Maria Santos stood near the tactical display. She commanded the battlecruiser Relentless, one of the most powerful ships in the sector. She was a small woman with short dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. They separated the children, she said quietly. They put them in a cell by themselves. Yes, Gray confirmed. The room fell silent. Every person there understood what that meant. Every person there felt the same cold anger beginning to build in their chest. Brooks turned to her communications officer, a young lieutenant named Amy Cole. Open a channel to the Eternal Mandate. Priority 1. I want to speak to High Arbiter Zolveth directly. Yes, ma'am. Cole's fingers flew across her console. Channel open. The view screen flickered, and then the face of High Arbiter Zolveth appeared. He was strange to look at, with his glowing blue skin and 4 eyes on waving stalks. His expression was one of mild annoyance, like someone interrupted during an unimportant task. I am High Arbiter Zolveth of the Valkyrie Confederation, he said. You are in communication with a sovereign vessel of the Confederation fleet. State your business. I am Admiral Katie Brooks of the United Earth Navy, Brooks replied. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something dangerous. You are holding 66 of my people, including 19 children. You have 1 hour to release them. All of them, unharmed. Zolveth's eye stalks rippled in what might have been amusement. Admiral, I believe there has been some misunderstanding. The humans in our custody violated Confederation law by entering restricted space. They will be processed according to our legal code. Your demands are not relevant to this matter. Let me be clear, Brooks said. I am not making demands. I am telling you what is going to happen. You took human children from their parents. You put them in cages. You scared them and hurt them. And now you are going to give them back. Or what, Admiral? Will you threaten the Valkyrie Confederation? We have ruled this sector for 3,000 years. We have crushed species far more powerful than yours. Your threats mean nothing to us. Brooks leaned forward slightly. Her eyes never left the screen. High Arbiter, I want you to understand something. There is nothing in this universe that will stop me from getting those children back. Not your fleet. Not your laws. Not your 3,000 years of history. Nothing. You have 1 hour. If those children are not released, I will come and get them myself. And you will not enjoy what happens when I arrive. Zolveth stared at her for a long moment. Something flickered across his face, though whether it was concern or contempt, Brooks could not tell. Your threats are noted, he said finally. They change nothing. The prisoners will be processed as scheduled. The channel went dead. Brooks stood motionless for a moment, staring at the blank screen. Then she turned to face her staff. Lieutenant Cole, send a message to every ship in the Third Fleet. I want them mobilized immediately. Full combat readiness. Yes, ma'am. Commander Gray, I want everything you have on the Eternal Mandate. Deck plans, weapon systems, shield frequencies, crew complement, everything. Already compiling it, Admiral. Captain Santos, the Relentless, will lead the strike group. How soon can you be ready to move? Santos smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We've been ready since the moment we heard children were involved, ma'am. Brooks nodded. She looked around the room at her officers, saw the determination in their faces. These were good people, professionals. But right now, they were something more than that. Right now, they were parents and siblings and friends and neighbors. And somewhere out there, 19 scared children were waiting for someone to save them. I want every ship we can muster, Brooks said. Military vessels, reserve fleet, auxiliary craft. If it can fly and it can shoot, I want it heading for the Valkyrie position within the hour. Ma'am, Gray said carefully, the Valkyrie have significant forces in this sector. If we escalate to open conflict, the casualties could be severe. I understand the risks, Commander. Admiral, I have to ask, are we really prepared to start a war over 66 civilians? Brooks turned to face him fully. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with something ancient and fierce. Lucas, they took children. Human children. They ripped them away from their parents and locked them in a cell somewhere, scared and alone. Some of those children are 5 years old. 5. They're crying for their mothers right now, and their mothers can hear them and can't reach them. She stepped closer to him. So yes, we are prepared to start a war. We are prepared to end one too, because that is what humans do when someone takes our children. We do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We do not stop. We get them back, whatever it costs. Gray held her gaze for a moment, then nodded slowly. Understood, Admiral. Brooks turned back to the view screen, where a star map showed the position of the Valkyrie fleet. 1 hour, she said quietly. And then we move. Across human space, the message was spreading. Ships were powering up their engines. Crews were rushing to their stations. Parents were kissing their own children goodbye and heading for their vessels, because somewhere out there, other parents' children were in danger, and humanity was coming. High Arbiter Zolveth stared at the blank view screen for a long time after the human admiral ended the transmission. He told himself that her words meant nothing. He told himself that the Valkyrie Confederation had nothing to fear from a species barely 500 years into space travel. He told himself that everything was under control. He did not believe any of it. There had been something in the human's eyes. Something that had made his skin prickle with an unfamiliar sensation. It took him a moment to recognize it as fear. High Arbiter? Commander Reshel stood nearby, waiting for orders. Should we increase our defensive posture? No, Zolveth said quickly. Too quickly. He forced himself to calm down. No, the human is bluffing. She commands perhaps a dozen ships at most. We have 18. She would not dare attack us. Of course, High Arbiter. However, I should report that the adult prisoners are becoming increasingly difficult to manage. They have injured 7 guards now. We have had to increase sedation 5 times, and still they keep trying to break free. Increase it again. High Arbiter, we are already at dangerous levels. If we go higher, we risk killing them. Then let them die, Zolveth snapped. I will not have my ship turned into chaos by a group of primitive apes. Rishel bowed his head, but his skin had paled slightly. As you command. There is also the matter of the juveniles. The guards report that they are huddled together in their cell, refusing to eat or drink. The smallest ones will not stop crying. Why should I care about the crying of alien offspring? You should not, High Arbiter. I merely thought you should be informed. Rishel hesitated. Several of the crew have expressed discomfort with the situation. They say the sounds the juveniles make are disturbing, like their own young, in a way. The Valkyrie do not have young in the same manner, Zolveth reminded him coldly. We reproduce through genetic cultivation, We do not form the same primitive bonds that lesser species do. Of course, High Arbiter. The tactical officer called out suddenly, his voice sharp with alarm. High Arbiter, we are detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Zolveth moved quickly to the tactical display. How may? Scanning now, High Arbiter. 20 ships? No, 30, 40. Still counting. On the display, points of light began appearing. Each one represented a ship dropping out of hyperspace into normal space. They emerged in tight formation, their weapons already powered and ready. 50 ships, the tactical officer reported. 60, 70. High Arbiter, the count is still rising. Zolveth felt his skin go cold. 70 ships. The human admiral had said she would come. He had thought she was bluffing. He had thought she was exaggerating her strength. He had been wrong. 100 ships, the tactical officer said. His voice was shaking now. 120. High Arbiter, they are still coming. The view screen showed the human fleet spreading out across the starfield. Destroyers and cruisers took up flanking positions. Carriers launched fighter craft that swarmed like angry insects. And at the center of the formation, a ship so large it made the Eternal Mandate look like a toy. That vessel? Zolveth whispered. What is it? Unknown configuration, High Arbiter. But based on power readings, it could destroy our entire fleet single-handedly. The ship was called the Titan's Fury. It was the flagship of the United Earth Defense Force, the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Admiral Brooks had called in every favor she had to get it here, and it was not alone. High Arbiter. The communications officer's voice cracked with panic. We are receiving transmissions from across the sector. Human vessels are converging from every direction. Military ships, merchant vessels, even civilian craft. They are all coming here. Civilian craft? What threat could civilians pose? They are not threatening us, High Arbiter. They are broadcasting the same message over and over on every frequency. What message? The communications officer played the recording. A single phrase, spoken in calm, steady voices by thousands of different people. They took our children. The words sent a chill through the bridge. Even Zolveth, who prided himself on his composure, felt something twist in his stomach. Then the communications console lit up with incoming transmissions. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They were coming from across Confederation space, from ambassadors and traders and diplomatic contacts who had dealt with humans before. They were all saying the same thing. Zolveth opened the first message. It was from Ambassador Vethra, the Confederation's highest-ranking diplomat. Her face appeared on the screen, and her skin was pale with what could only be described as terror. High Arbiter Zolveth, release the human young immediately. This is not a request. This is not a suggestion. The High Council is convening an emergency session as we speak. They are ordering you to comply. The Council orders me to bow to these primitives? Zolveth demanded. Listen to me, Vethra said urgently. Do you know why no species has ever successfully invaded human space? Do you know why the Kreth Dominion, with their fleets of 1,000 ships, collapsed within 10 years of attacking a human colony? Do you know why the Syndicate of Nine agreed to a permanent peace treaty after just one battle? The humans are violent, yes, but they protect their young, Zolveth. Vethra leaned closer to the screen. They protect them with a ferocity that defies all reason. It is not just instinct. It is not just biology. It is something in their very nature, something we do not fully understand. When their young are threatened, they become something else, something unstoppable. On the tactical display, the count of human ships had reached 200. More were arriving every minute. Some of them showed signs of damage, their engines pushed beyond safe limits. They had traveled at dangerous speeds to get here faster. They had come anyway. The Kreth thought they could use human children as hostages, Vethra continued. They thought it would make the humans surrender. Instead, the humans attacked without hesitation. They did not care about casualties. They did not care about strategy. They simply came, wave after wave, until the Kreth had nothing left. The Dominion fell within a decade, destroyed not by superior technology, but by a species that would not stop, could not stop, until every last child was safe. Zolveth watched the human ships continue to gather. There were more than 200 now. Some of them were not even military vessels. He saw cargo ships and passenger liners, personal yachts and mining haulers. They had no weapons, no armor, no hope of surviving a battle. They had come anyway, because somewhere on his ship, 19 human children were afraid and alone. What would you have me do? He asked quietly. Release them, Vethra said. Release them now, before this becomes something none of us can stop. The humans are not here to negotiate. They are not here to threaten. They are here to take back their young, and they will tear through anything that stands in their way. You have seen their fleet. That is not a show of force. That is a species coming to collect their children. And if you do not give them back, they will come and take them. She paused, her eyes boring into his. And they will make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. On the tactical display, the human fleet had formed a complete sphere around the Velthri position. 237 ships, with more arriving every minute. They were not attacking. Not yet. They were waiting. And High Arbiter Zolveth finally began to understand what he had done. The hour was up. Admiral Katie Brooks stood on the bridge of the Titan's Fury, surrounded by officers who were waiting for her command. The view screen showed a Velthri fleet, 18 ships clustered together like frightened animals. Around them, in every direction, human ships waited in perfect formation. 253 vessels had answered the call. More were still coming, but Brooks was done waiting. She opened a channel to the Eternal Mandate. High Arbiter Zolveth, she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Your hour is over. I am going to give you one more chance. One. Release our children. On the screen, Zolveth appeared. He looked different than before. His skin had lost its healthy glow. His eye stalks moved nervously, unable to settle on any one point. He was afraid. Good. Admiral Brooks, he said slowly. Perhaps we can discuss terms. The Confederation is willing to negotiate. You took our children, Brooks interrupted. You separated them from their parents. You put them in a cell, alone and scared. 5-year-olds, High Arbiter. 7-year-olds. Do you have any idea what that does to a child? Do you have any idea what that does to their parents? We did not intend. I don't care what you intended. I care what you did. Right now, on your ship, 19 children are crying for their mothers. And their mothers can hear them crying and cannot reach them. Brooks leaned forward. That ends now. You will release them. You will release all of them. And you will pray that I am feeling merciful when this is over. Zolveth opened his mouth to respond, but he was interrupted by an alarm from somewhere behind him. Shouting voices filled the background. His eye stalks whipped around in confusion. What is happening? He demanded. Commander Richel appeared on the edge of the screen, his skin pale. High Arbiter, the adult prisoners have broken free. They have breached containment. They are moving toward the juvenile holding area. How is that possible? The containment fields, they tore through the walls. High Arbiter. They ripped the panels apart with their hands. We tried to stop them. We could not. Richel's voice shook. They will not stop. No matter what we do to them, they will not stop. In Holding Block 7, the impossible had happened. 47 humans had been trapped behind energy fields and reinforced walls. They had been sedated with drugs powerful enough to knock out a Volturi for days. They had been told that resistance was useless, that their children were beyond their reach, that they should simply accept their fate. They had not accepted .Henry. Porter had been the first to realize that the walls were weaker than the doors. The energy fields blocked the exits, but the walls themselves were just metal and composite. Strong, yes. Strong enough to stop any rational creature. But humans with children in danger were not rational. He had started tearing at the wall panels with his bare hands. Others joined him. They pulled and pried and smashed until their fingers bled, until their arms screamed with exhaustion. The sedatives made their movements slow and clumsy, but they did not stop. They could not stop. Margaret worked beside him. She was a small woman, a schoolteacher who had never been in a fight in her life. But she had a daughter somewhere on the ship, a daughter who was scared and alone. And nothing in the universe was going to keep her from finding that child. The wall gave way. They poured through the gap, stumbling and bleeding but alive. Guards tried to stop them. The guards failed. It was not that the humans were stronger or better fighters. It was that they simply would not stay down. They were knocked back, and they got up. They were shot with stun weapons, and they got up. They were beaten and thrown, and still they got up. Because their children were waiting. Henry led the way through corridors he had never seen before. He did not know where he was going, but something guided him. Some instinct that lived deep in his bones, older than thought, older than language. His daughter was close. He could feel it. They reached Containment Unit 12. The door was sealed with a heavy lock. Henry did not slow down. He threw himself at the door. Others joined him. They hit it again and again, ignoring the pain, ignoring the guards shooting at them from behind, ignoring everything except the need to reach their children. The door buckled. Then it bent. Then it broke. Henry stumbled into the room and saw his daughter. Lily was huddled in a corner with the other children. She was small and pale and terrified, her eyes red from crying. But when she saw her father, her face lit up with something beyond joy. "Daddy!" She ran across the room and leaped into his arms. He caught her and held her so tightly he could barely breathe. Tears streamed down his face, but he did not care. She was safe. His little girl was safe. All around him, families were reuniting. Parents scooped up their children and held them close. Mothers kissed foreheads and wiped away tears. Fathers made fierce promises of protection. Emma, the teenager who had kept the younger children calm, finally allowed herself to cry as her own mother wrapped her in a desperate embrace. Margaret found Lily in Henry's arms and threw herself around both of them. For a long moment, they just stood there, the three of them together, alive and safe and whole. "I knew you would come," Lily whispered. "I told them you would come." "Always," Henry said, his voice breaking. "Always, sweetheart. Nothing could ever stop us from finding you." One of the fathers had taken a communication device from a fallen guard. He activated it now, sending a message to the human fleet outside. "This is Henry Porter, captain of the Wanderer's Hope. We have reached our children. All 19 are safe. Repeat, all children are safe." On the bridge of the Titan's Fury, Admiral Brooks received the message. She closed her eyes for just a moment, letting the relief wash through her. Then she opened them and looked at the view screen, where High Arbiter Zolveth's face still waited. "You heard that," she said quietly. "Our children are safe. Your guards could not stop their parents from reaching them. Nothing could." She stood straighter. "Now you and I are going to have a conversation about what happens next. And High Arbiter? The entire galaxy is going to be listening." Zolveth's skin had gone pale, almost white. He looked like a creature who had suddenly realized that everything he believed about the universe was wrong. "We did not understand," he said slowly. "We did not know what your young meant to you. Now you do." Brooks gestured, and her communications officer began broadcasting on every channel, to every species across the entire sector. "Let this be a lesson to everyone watching. Humanity does not make war lightly. We do not seek conflict. We ask only to live in peace with our neighbors." She paused. "But there is one line that must never be crossed. You do not touch our children. You do not threaten them. You do not take them from their parents. Because if you do, we will come for them. All of us. Every ship we have, every person who can hold a weapon, every mother and father and sister and brother. We will come, and we will not stop until our children are safe." She looked directly at Zolveth. "Remember this day, High Arbiter. Remember it well. And make sure that everyone in the Velthari Confederation knows what happens when you take human children." The message spread across the stars at the speed of light, carried on every frequency in every language. Species that had never heard of humanity suddenly knew their name. And they knew one thing above all else: do not touch the children. Ever. The treaty was signed 3 days later. It was not really a negotiation. The Velthari Confederation, for the first time in 3,000 years of history, simply agreed to everything the humans asked. High Arbiter Zolveth was not even present at the signing. He had been removed from his position the moment his fleet returned to Confederation space. The High Council had decided that he represented a danger to Velthari survival, not because he had captured the humans, but because he had failed to understand what he was dealing with. All 66 captives were returned unharmed. The Confederation issued a formal apology that was broadcast across every communication network in the sector. They paid compensation to each family. They changed their laws to specifically forbid the detention of minors under any circumstances. But the most important change was not written in any treaty. It was something that spread through the galaxy in whispers and warnings, passed from species to species in quiet conversations. Fear. The Velthari now feared humanity. Not because of their weapons, though those were impressive. Not because of their ships, though 253 vessels had answered the call in a matter of hours. They feared humanity because they had witnessed something they could not understand. They had seen ordinary people tear through walls with their bare hands. They had seen civilians fly damaged ships across light years at dangerous speeds. They had seen a species mobilize for war, not for conquest or resources or revenge, but simply to bring home 19 frightened children. And they had realized that this was not unusual. This was not exceptional. This was simply what humans did. Zolveth was not executed for his failure. Instead, he was given a new assignment: to study humanity, to understand them, to find some way to predict what they might do in the future. It was considered the most important task in the Confederation. He spent months interviewing human diplomats and historians. He read their literature and watched their entertainment. He studied their history from the earliest records to the present day. And slowly, piece by piece, he began to understand. Among our species, a human ambassador explained to him during one of their conversations, there is a concept we call parenthood. It is more than just biology, more than just producing offspring. It is a bond that shapes everything we are. We have similar bonds among the Velthari, Zolveth said. Genetic cultivation creates connections between... No, the ambassador interrupted gently. You do not have anything like this. I mean, no offense, High Arbiter, but what humans feel for their children is something beyond genetic connection. It is beyond reason, beyond self-preservation. When our children are threatened, we do not calculate odds or weigh consequences. We act, even if action means certain death. Even then, the ambassador smiled sadly. There is a saying among my people, you can endure anything if your children are safe. But the reverse is also true. If our children are not safe, we cannot endure anything. We cannot negotiate. We cannot be patient. We cannot be reasonable. We become something else entirely. What do you become? The ambassador looked at him for a long moment. Unstoppable. Zolvith included this conversation in his report to the High Council. He recommended that the Confederation maintain friendly relations with humanity at all costs. He suggested that any species considering conflict with humans should be warned about the consequences. He emphasized again and again that the key to coexistence was simple. Never threaten the children. The story of what happened spread across the galaxy. Species that had dismissed humanity as newcomers, as primitives, as a curiosity not worth serious attention, suddenly revised their opinions. The great empires took note. The ancient civilizations paid attention. Even species that had never encountered humans learned their name and learned to respect it. The Kreth Dominion, whose empire had collapsed centuries ago after attacking human colonies, released an official statement confirming what everyone now suspected. They had tried to use human children as leverage. They had expected surrender. Instead, they had received annihilation. We thought we could break them, the Kreth statement read. We thought that threatening their young would make them submit. We were wrong. They did not submit. They did not negotiate. They did not count their losses or calculate their chances. They simply came for their children, and they did not stop until every last one was safe. By the time it was over, our empire was in ruins and our species was scattered to the stars. Other species added their own warnings. Stories were shared, lessons were passed down, and gradually a simple rule became known across the galaxy. You could trade with humanity. You could talk to them, argue with them, compete with them. You could even fight them if you were foolish enough, though you would probably lose. But there was one thing you could never, ever do. You could not touch their children. Admiral Katie Brooks retired 2 years after the incident. She was given medals and honors, statues and memorials. She refused most of the attention. When reporters asked her for interviews, she usually declined. When governments wanted to celebrate her as a hero, she reminded them that she had only done what any human would do. But she did agree to one interview, conducted on the anniversary of the rescue. The reporter asked her to explain what had happened, why humanity had responded with such overwhelming force. Brooks thought about the question for a long moment before answering. "We are a complicated species," she said finally. "We fight and argue and compete. We hurt each other sometimes. We make mistakes. But underneath all of that, there is something that never changes. Something that defines us more than anything else. What is that? We love our children." Brooks looked at the camera. Completely. Without conditions. Without limits. They are not just our offspring. They are our hope, our future, everything we dream of being and doing and creating. When you take a human child from their parents, you are not just committing a crime. You are attacking something sacred. And if another species made that mistake again? Brooks smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Only the quiet certainty of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. Then, they would learn the same lesson the Vilthri learned. The same lesson the Kreth learned. The same lesson every species eventually learns about humanity. She leaned forward slightly. You can take anything from us. Our homes, our ships, our lives. We will grieve and we will rebuild. But our children are not negotiable. They are not leverage. They are not tools to be used against us. She paused. If you take our children, there is no force in the universe that will protect you from what comes next. No fleet, no treaty, no alliance. We will find you. We will stop you. And when we are done, Every species in the galaxy will know that you were the civilization foolish enough to harm humanity's young." The interview ended there. The reporter thanked Brooks for her time and packed up his equipment. As he was leaving, he asked one final question. "Admiral, if you could send one message to any species out there thinking about crossing that line, what would it be?" Brooks stood at the window of her home, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her own grandchildren were playing, safe and happy and completely unaware of the galaxy's dangers. She intended to keep it that way. "My message is simple," she said quietly. "Don't." And across the galaxy, in council chambers and command centers, in diplomatic halls and military headquarters, species looked at each other and nodded in agreement. The humans had made themselves clear. Their children were off limits forever.